Okay, with Season of Discovery being out for a little over 2 weeks, we have seen some massive changes and developments between class specializations in the game. And while it's true, most of them are fun, but only a select few could be the best. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the top 10 specializations in PvE for Phase 1 inside of Season of Discovery. 6 DPS, 2 tanks, and 2 healers, beginning with the damage dealers. Starting off with our first spec in the A tier for DPS, we have the Destruction Warlock. Previously in Classic World of Warcraft, Warlocks were never considered a powerhouse when it comes to DPS. Stale rotation, average damage, and taken in raids mostly due to their curses, health stones, and summons. Inside of Season of Discovery, however, Destruction Warlocks got some very nice tools to make their DPS rotation much better, using Incinerate as your primary DPS ability, as well as a damage amplifier for your hard-hitting Chaos Bolt and Immolate abilities. You can absolutely pump damage into targets non-stop with Life Tap also, and it is a fact that Destruction Warlocks is currently the best caster DPS in the entire game. So not only do you deal the most damage out of all the casters, you bring some of the most utility as well. Health stones for the raid, soul stones for your tanks, and coming next phase, you'll even have some very powerful curses at your disposal, like Curse of the Elements, making you crucial to every raid group. As you can see on screen here, from the top 10 parses for Destruction Warlock, their damage is absolutely pumping, ranging from 150 to topping off at about 180 DPS. Destruction Warlock is doing phenomenal right now, considering it's a caster in the first phase, and it should continue to improve as Season of Discovery moves forward. Moving on to our next A-tier DPS, we have the Arms Warrior. Now, Warriors in Season of Discovery didn't undergo quite as big as an overhaul, but they did receive a good amount of changes to their playstyle. I know this may be a surprise to you, considering how poor they performed in the first few BFD lockouts, but man, Warrior is really starting to come into its own. Combining Consumed by Rage to pull your rage up to 80 and do massive rage dumps with Raging Blow, Quick Strike, and your basic attacks pull off an incredible amount of damage that is almost some of the best in the entire game. The only reason they aren't considered S tier is because they really don't bring enough utility or raw DPS yet to be unmatched. Warrior is by far the most gear and level reliant class in the entire game, so seeing them perform so well in the first phase is something that truly shocked a lot of people. Once you start acquiring some of the better raid loot and a solid two-handed weapon, your damage truly starts to feel night and day, and you easily manage to become some of the best melee DPS out there. You bring out your shouts, sunder armor, and the ability to off-tank as well, making you always valuable to at least bring one warrior to the raid. Warrior DPS is in a great spot right now, considering it's supposed to be a late game class, and you're already performing well in the first phase. Moving on now to our final A-tier DPS slot, we have the Retribution Paladin. Paladins have received the most changes out of any class heading into Season of Discovery, and with that, it shoots Paladin up to one of the most valuable classes to have with you in your raid. You have a fast, engaging rotation using Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Exorcism, Judgment, as well as your basic attack and Seal of Command procs. It seems the only thing getting in the Retribution Paladin's way is mana consumption, because you are constantly running out of mana. Now, they may not be the #1 DPS in the game, but they offer some of the most powerful buffs and life-saving cooldowns in the form of their blessings, such as Blessing of Protection, Lay on Hands, as well as their useful party mana regeneration with Blessing of Wisdom. Not only that, they get an amazing weapon with Varigan's Fist with a Paladin-only quest chain that is unlocked, that is the hardest hitting weapon in the game outside of two-handers inside of the Black Fathom Deeps raid. Everybody knows how strong Paladins are at the moment, and they're only going to get stronger heading into the next phases once their talent trees get a little bit more fleshed out. If you're playing a Retribution Paladin right now, you are in a fantastic spot, and things are only looking to get better for you. Now, moving on to our first S-tier specialization, we have the Combat Rogue. The Combat Rogue has received some fun new tools inside of Season of Discovery that have become incredibly straightforward and very effective for players of all skill levels. Saber Slash replaces Sinister Strike, applying a really powerful 3-stack bleed that deals significant damage to bosses. Deadly Brew is used to apply instant and deadly poison at the same time, and Envenom overrides Eviscerate to deal solid damage against bosses with heavy armor. 3 rune slots, and the gameplay style barely changes, making it very easy for anyone to pick up. As of the last 24 hours, with the recent buff now making Saber Slash considered a bleed effect and work with Feral Druid's Mangle, The Combat Rogue officially took over the #1 DPS spot in the entire game. The only problem being is that that's kind of all they bring. And there really isn't anything wrong with that. It's just that this class is still missing some of their game-changing cooldowns like Adrenaline Rush and excellent passives like Sword Spec to straight up duplicate their attacks. You can expect them to be coming close to topping the meters in the next phase as well, so Rogues inside of Season of Discovery right now is very straightforward, hard-hitting, and by far one of the coolest classes in the game, making it a great choice for anybody to pick up. Moving on to our next S-tier DPS spec, we have the Beast Mastery Hunter. This class has seen by far more nerfs than any other class inside of Season of Discovery. First, Explosive Shot was too strong, that got nerfed. Scorpion Pets were too strong, that got nerfed. Wind Serpents were too strong, then that got nerfed as well. It's been a tough road for Hunters since the Season of Discovery launch, but they are still managing to stay near the top of the DPS charts. Beast Mastery in particular is super strong right now, with their pets passively dealing roughly about 55 to 60% of their total damage by using their runes like Beast Mastery and Kill Command, which turns your pet into an absolute wrecking ball. This has made Hunter even more straightforward and effective than ever, even for new players. On top of that, the Hunter brings a now very unique buff with the Aspect of the Lion that gives you 10% more stats to all members inside of the raid, making them mandatory inside of every raid group. There's a reason why Hunters are the most popular class in the game. I mean, you have great damage, easy to level, and mandatory buffs to always bring inside the raid. What more could you ask for? Moving on to last, but certainly not least on our S-tier DPS, we have the Feral Druid. I mean, it is short and sweet when it comes to the Feral Druid. This class came out of the gate absolutely swinging inside of Season of Discovery. They bring some of the most utility in the game with Mark of the Wild, Rebirth for a combat res, Wind Fury with Wild Strikes, and you have Mangle to amplify bleeds by 30%. Not only that, though, they also bring great DPS all on their own with a relatively straightforward rotation as of right now for anyways. I'm not going to lie, though, from a raw damage standpoint, Feral has been dropping in the ranks over the last week, but their utility is by far the best in the game and truly unmatched at this level, making them the most valuable raid member you could possibly have coming into your group. Coming next phase, though, they're looking to dominate the leaderboards even more with having the ability to power shift with the Wolf's Head helmet, which is going to make it easy to upkeep Rip, Savage Roar, and Tiger's Fury all at once with practically never-ending energy regeneration. Feral Druid is dominating in all aspects of Season of Discovery right now, and it is no doubt they are S tier, the best for raid groups in the entire game. They are definitely on top, and it's looking to stay that way for a very, very long time to come. Moving on now to our tanks. First up on our A tier, it's going to be the Protection Warrior. Now, yes, they're missing a lot of their toolkit by only being level 25, but they still have a lot of powerful tools at their disposal. Having Shield Block to constantly reduce the amount of damage they take, Last Stand to increase your health by a whopping 30% is also a great cooldown to use for your raid if anything gets out of hand. Not only that, you have a very simple and effective rotation with spamming Devastate to keep up Sunder Armor and dealing great damage, and also Heroic Strike if you pull enough Rage. Not only that, though, because you're so naturally tanky, you could focus on more damage-based runes like Consumed by Rage and Flagellation also. The Protection Warrior absolutely dominated throughout Classic, and when it comes to main tanking, they're already one of the best in the game. I think by the time next phase comes out, they will be taking over the #1 spot and looking to be king once again. But right now, I still think they need a couple of more things in their arsenal for it to be that way. Either way, they're in a great spot. Moving on to what I think is the best tank in the entire game, the Enhancement Shaman. I don't think anybody could have guessed Enhancement Shamans to be this powerful when it comes to tanking. I mean, you got a great low cooldown 6-second taunt with Earth Shocks, the best AoE damage amongst tanks, as well as threat generation with Molten Blast, totems for excellent utility for your party, whether it be Healing Stream Totem or Strength of Earth to buff your allies, a fun and engaging rotation with Spreading Flame Shock, Molten Blast, and Lightning Shield if your mana allows it. I mean, the Enhancement Shaman can truly tank every single fight inside of BFD, no problem. For right now, I would say the only weakness of the Shaman is that it doesn't have a powerful defensive on use effect like the Warrior. As of right now, though, it isn't a big problem because BFD doesn't require you to have it, but we're hoping that the developers take notice of something like this and give them something like Astral Shift or even Shield Wall to mitigate a ton of damage when a boss enrages. All in all, though, the Enhancement Shaman tank is in an amazing, amazing spot right now and is looking to dominate heading into next phase. so let's just hope they get an on-use defensive. Moving on now to our healers. First up for the A tier, we have Restoration Druid. The Restoration Druid is always a fantastic choice to bring inside of a raid. I mean, you have Mark of the Wild, Rebirth. These are always great to have and are a really big talking point when you bring up the Druid. This class has great single target healing throughput with Healing Touch, top tier raid healing with the introduction of Wild Growth, which heals for a great amount of health over a 40-yard range to a bunch of targets in the area. You have other great utilities such as Remove Curse and Cure Poison for the raid. I mean, the Restoration Druid right now is by far the easiest healer to play in the game, with the rotation pretty much being spamming Wild Growth on cooldown throughout your entire raid, and then letting the Area of Effect healing do its job. You use the Wild Growth, spam Wrath until you get instant healing touch procs, and then you let your Spirit tick back your mana a little bit. It's literally as simple as that. This makes Restoration Druid incredibly effective while also being very easy to play, which is why a lot of newer healers play this spec. Overall, the Restoration Druid is in a fantastic place right now in Season of Discovery, and there's a reason Wild Growth has the highest healing per second in the entire game, beating out incredible spells such as Prayer of Mending and Circle of Healing. And speaking of priests, moving on to the best healer in the game, it's no surprise that Disciplined Priest is on top. I mean, you name it, this class has it. Incredible AoE spread healing with Prayer of Mending and Renews. Great single target healing with Penance as well as their Power Absorb shields. I mean, the healing is through the roof. All of their rooms are relatively low mana, and it feels like they can heal forever with proper mana management. Not only that, it's actually very popular to stack multiple priests in a 10-man raid because of how much versatility they have on their runes. One priest can focus on single target healing and raid-wide damage mitigation with Power Ward Barrier, and the other priest can focus on raid-wide healing, stacking Circle of Healing and Prayer of Mending. It's sad to say that classes like the Mage and Paladin aren't even close to the priest, but really it's just simply because the priest is so strong at this point. Heading into next phase, we expect this class to get even stronger in terms of raw healing potential, and we do not see it slowing down at all. If you're playing a priest inside a Season of Discovery, get ready because things are about to get a whole lot better. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up our list for the top 10 specializations in PvE for Season of Discovery currently. Do you all have any classes that we may have missed? Is there something that you don't agree with? Let us know in the comment section below. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. It's an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. Until the very end, my name is Sky from the Comeback Kids. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.